Mr. Rich?
Present.
Mr. Venable?
Present.
Ms. Gilbert?
Present.
And Mr. Sisk?
Present.
We're going to have our invocation by Mr. Porter and our pledge by Ms. Gilbert.
Pray together. God our Father, we're blessed. Each and every day that we are allowed to live on this earth, we are so blessed. But right now we have special prayers for those citizens of our state who have been affected by the tornadoes and loss of life and loss of property. God, we just pray that you'll be with them and give them comfort and guidance and be with those that are ministering to them. We're so thankful for the first responders that responded to their needs originally, and just all those that are helping them right now. So we just pray for them and pray you keep them in your comfort and give them peace. So watch over them and give them healing. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have no awards and presentations. We don't have anybody sign up to speak, do we, Mr.?
No, sir.
So we'll go right on to approval of the agenda. See the one in front of you. If you can get a motion in a second.
I'll motion.
I'll make a second, please.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? First item of discussion will be the county roadside litter cleanup. This is something that we've been wanting to talk about for a while. That we've got a major problem with our trash on the road, dumping sites, people that, for whatever reason, have picked certain areas to dump trash. So we need to try to get some ideas together about how we can try to correct this problem. Anybody want to input into this?
Yeah, I've noticed a good bit of activity just recently. We had talked one time about possibly getting some game cameras or something and putting out, but who would manage those cameras? Would we ask the solid waste to have somebody put the cameras out and monitor them, or sheriff's department? I think it's something we need to discuss and
I think the road department would be the smartest ones to put it out, because y'all got you're the only ones got a boom truck. So we can put them up high enough.
elevation?
Yeah,
And I recently purchased one for my home that's a solar panel, so we wouldn't have to have an electrical source. Be solar powered.
yeah, because I think some of them ain't they on Wi-Fi. We talked about it.
Well, they connect to a cellular tower.
Cellular tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be the way to do it.
yeah, and they would email, because that way if somebody stole it or damaged it or something, you'd still have the evidence. That's one thing, and
Cloud storage, you could do that.
I need to check it out. Any other ideas?
as far as just roadside litter, there's a couple of things I would like for us to start trying to do is I think Ms. Lewis I spoke with her about it, about possibly just starting to do some stuff in the schools to try to get some education material and get some stuff out to the kids. Maybe if we could get started younger. You see a lot of just fast food stuff and disposable bottles, just soft drink bottles and stuff on the side of the road. And, start like that. And then if we could, I don't know how to go about it, but I think we have some businesses that would sponsor some cleanup days if we, made a donation, or took a donation and gave it to, a softball or a fire department or baseball, just, some civic group or organization that wants to get cleaned up in the community and somehow log hours and ones with the most hours or whatever, do that. And also another idea I had, if we sponsored either an essay or a poster competition for the elementary, and there may be some grants out there that would help with some of this stuff, either give the classroom or the student some type of reward for,
You could get local businesses to sponsor the poster contest. It's usually how those go down. And it's usually like $100 to whichever child won kind of thing, and then like $100 to the classroom, so that, double up on it to get the teachers to wanna get the kids to participate.
Well, schools are always looking for continuous improvement plan that they have to put forward in community involvement, so that could be something they can include again. And our school's a leader in May School, and that would be another community project. But we need to combine it with like the recycling too. This generation's big on the recycling, so we could get them involved in that, maybe even the sanitation department.
well, do we want to, start looking for donations for that, and then maybe at another work session or two, come together and try to lay out the parameters of the contest, if we can get some businesses or individuals to sponsor?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Just write it in the paper. We'll try to get donations for that. What'd you say, schools, what, continuing?
Continuous improvement plan, the CIP, that we have to do for the state each year.
And if we could get like, Interact, Key Club, those kind of groups that have to have community service
Beta.
hours, Beta, that would, it's older kids, that's high school, but you have, the principals and the superintendents just let them get involved. But as far as me writing a letter saying, hey, I gave them the supplies, they cleaned this up, they get this many hours for it, not a problem, by no means. And that would be some quick and easy volunteer hours and cleanup.
That's the other thing that I don't think a lot of people know about is we do have, if somebody does want to volunteer, we do have
Supplies.
Supplies.
Garbage bags are a
Bags.
constant. Sometimes we have gloves, sometimes we don't. It depends on what Keep Alabama Beautiful can give us, but that's part of the Keep Jackson County Beautiful.
How does that work with, them kind of working for us? I mean, I know things have changed. Back when we were in school, you had to keep the valley clean where I was raised, and, but the liability, before there was anything, if there was to be some kind of accident.
Not any more than normal public on the side of the road. I mean, we're not creating any liability, we're just offering the
Volunteer
chance for
basis.
people to volunteer to clean the roadside
Okay.
on public property.
It would be good if we could do this county-wide on a certain day, where we could advertise that day and make people aware of, potential activity in their communities.
Just a couple of times a month, or once a month, or how,
Depending on what kind of support we got from the business community, I'd like to at least do it quarterly.
Need to coordinate it with sanitation too, and even add their advertising days when they send the truck to all the communities, we can combine that with our efforts.
That's good. The only issue that I have a few citizens that come through and they get supplies and do cleanups, mostly around in their front yards and along their roads. Their issue is if they have too many bags, they fill up their personal trash can, they want to know what to do with the other bags. And I don't believe that sanitation has a rear load garbage truck anymore. And because we don't have a full-time inmate litter crew, it's hard for someone to go out and pick the bags up. And so now you've gathered this litter, but you still have a garbage bag wasted away on the side of the road.
And I think the county had tried several years ago to put some roll-offs in some locations, and that didn't go well, because when it overflowed, people continued to pile stuff up around it, and then the county had to send out labor to pick that stuff up, so I don't know what the solution is, and I'm sure when you first get started, it's gonna be a lot more material than it would be several years into it if you continue the program.
Which, for the most part, they'll let me know what roads they're cleaning up, and if I had someone with a truck and a trailer, they could just go pick them up and then find a dumpster to put them in, really. The city of Langston had a cleanup on their, what they call Main Street, but it's actually a county road, and the number I can't think of, lost me, but they actually just dumped all the bags into the town hall trash can. the dumpster out back, so, and it worked out okay. I mean,
Maybe we need to check with the municipalities and see who is willing to do that, you know, allow that to happen.
Well, but only on cleanup, so it would be
Right.
something that you like.
Everyday take your trash, yeah.
I think the sanitation department has a rear load truck, cause I called them week before last, and they're all worked through with the town of Woodville. And, that's what we'd have to do, is kind of stage that, if we had they had it all piled on a trailer wagon, 18-foot trailer wagon, and, we'd have to work with them, and they could come by and pick it up, it'd be a benefit for us all.
That's the biggest issue with the older people in the county that are out cleaning up, the ones that aren't in school, is they just don't have no place to put it after they pick it up.
Well, maybe if we coordinated and had some community stuff, we could get a container or a truck or something in that community, quarterly or something. I know we go to some of these communities with, on Saturdays, but, maybe with more activity and stuff. Right now, those few people are scattered all over the county, so it's hard to send one person all over the county to pick up trash bags that's been collected. So maybe if we could coordinate and start doing, in each community at a given time.
I think that's something we can't help here, but I think their legislation needs to be changed to increase their fines. Fines are nothing now for somebody that's out here dumping TVs and beds and everything else alongside the road, so I think that's something as we go forward, it needs to be changed. They've changed it in several counties, I think it needs to be changed here, so that if they are caught, it's a fine hard enough to make people want to stop doing it.
Well, and then you can use the fine money to put back in the program to try to keep more litter off the side of the roads.
Yep.
We've already got a big problem. I know I've talked with Jonathan and Laurel also at the county line, here, Madison County line, and I noticed this past weekend they've even dropped a dishwasher and 2 more mattresses off and 4 tires.
That old the KO gas station.
Right. And I talked with Darrell a few weeks ago, and he was looking into seeing about who owned the property, and he found out, and he was going to see what the legal matters was about, putting a lien on the place or what he had to do, as far as getting something done to compensate. And I know that Jonathan, he had told me he would furnish a man, go down there with a backhoe and load it, and that's what I was trying to get with Darrell to get a roll-off bed. Because at that time, it would work, but if it keeps on building up, one roll-off's not gonna do it, because it's been a pretty big add-on to it the last few days.
And it just be one of the areas we put the game cameras in.
If we did the cameras, Mr. Porter, what would be the legality of posting that on the website to see if we get those persons identified?
As long as you're videoing on public property, there's not a problem. You would not want to train the camera so that they are looking into private property. As long as on public property, you shouldn't have a problem.
Get a sponsor for the camera.
Hmm.
Send the website.
Jonathan, got a comment?
Yeah, I saw a news clip, Tennessee River Keepers. There might be some organizations like it, but I think they partnered with TVA, and they were targeting microplastics and other litter in the waterway. But the news clip I saw was telling about microplastics and how it's not only unsightly, but as the plastics break down, it's the small particles that are within the waterway. And for all our tourists that come and have to see it, but also it's the fishery. It's a concern for the fishery because it's consumed by all of that and then passed on to, of course, anyone that consumes it as well. But that may be an outlet on partnering with someone like that. The video footage showed barges, large barges. It had an immense amount of material on it that had been collected from the waterways.
So they've actually partnered with Keep Alabama Beautiful. Denise Taylor, she's with it right at the Huntsville office, and she asked me, she's trying to put together a meeting with them and I and try to get us to work together and see what kind of relationship can be forwarded there.
Good.
What about Fish and Game, wildlife? Maybe they can partner with us in some way? If nothing but being eyes, let us know what's going on where.
Okay, I can talk to them. Anybody else got any more roadside litter. No, we're on to number 2. Well, before we go on number 2, I guess it's just something we need to take right into the next work session. So we can get some of these questions answered, and we'll just add it to our next work session. Number 2 is gonna be pending resolution. We're coming up on time that if we're gonna do something about our current financial state, we're gonna have to do it right away. So I think we're gonna have to do a resolution, to which direction we wanna go. So, do we wanna go with a 1-cent sales tax proposal for the legislators? Do we wanna do a 1/2-cent sales tax? I'm open for ideas.
1/2 of the tax authority collected, redistribution. There's a lot of different ways we could go, and we had a lot of discussions with our delegation, but you get 2 to agree to one thing, and the other one won't, and 2 different ones that agree to something else, and the other one won't, so, but, you know, they go into session tomorrow. Any local law will have to be advertised for 4 weeks, so if we don't pass something, send to them pretty soon, if they take action on it, they're running out of time to take action on it for this session, so, what does the commission want to do? I mean, we need to do something. We need to send them
I
some.
think
type of-
we're past the point of needing to do something. We've got to do something tonight. I mean, we've got to make a decision on if we're gonna do something. If we're going to, let's do it and put it on the next meeting. Because like I said, the time of discussing it's really coming to an end, so.
Well, the ideal thing would be if they would just agree to redistribute during the growth, that nobody would miss anything, but no one's willing to work with that.
That'd be the most sensible thing to do. You know,
I agree.
Bringing, you ought to raise taxes and, everybody's gotta give something sometime or another. We gotta get the roads fixed somewhere or another.
I'm concerned that a 1/2 or even a 50 cent of sales tax went back to the ballot. If this gas tax is passed, people are not gonna have a good appetite for raising voluntarily when they just got a tax imposed on them. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we're running out of time, and we need to get together, decide what we want to pursue, send a resolution to the delegation, and hope that they take action in some way on it.
Well,
Mr. Chair-
go ahead. Well, one of the things I was gonna say about the gas taxes, number 1, we don't know for 100% it's gonna pass. And then number 2, we feel pretty certain it will, but we don't know if we're gonna get a little bitty portion, a sizable portion, we don't know. And we can't dictate how we move forward based on whether it happens or don't happen. The county's got to have a growth tax. If you set aside gas tax, it's gonna have to have a growth tax in some way, because we don't have one.
If we were allowed to retain 12.5% of the current 2 cents that's collected for the rest of this fiscal year and all of 2020, and then in 2021, if we were allowed to retain 25% of the 2 cents that's already collected, that would give us a 1/2 cent of sales tax.
And
And
the sales tax is currently growing tremendously anyway, the
in
amount that we're spending is.
2014, it was 8.2 million, and now this year we're projected to be over $12 million.
12, 13 million right now is what it looks like.
So, 25% reduction, you'd still be above.
What they're receiving now, they wouldn't notice the loss.
And the general public would have a better appetite on that than raising sales tax more.
My thoughts are, I would love, I know that we gotta have some money and it's gonna have to come to the table quick. I would love to sit down with the municipalities all across the county, the superintendent, Jackson County Board of Education, the council in Scottsboro City, and the city school. And if it takes being a public meeting, that's what it needs to be, because 2% of this tax, everybody thinks that we get it. The biggest majority of Jackson County folks thinks we get 2% tax. 4%, correct me if I'm wrong, 4% state, 3% city, 2% divided among county schools and city schools, not divided equally, but that 2% is divided among them, we get 0. I'm not for putting a tax on and meeting with our legislative bunch. I think if we had more of a meeting and understanding with all municipalities, hopefully the people will all understand we're not wanting to take anything. Right now, I feel like they're working with money they did not know they're gonna have. Google come on, has brought on a big piece of the pie as far as the money, and it's gonna get bigger. The county schools, are working on $38 million back in 2016. I think what it was, if we pull it up, they're on $50 million today. That's $12 million. And as Jason said, 8 million to 12 million growth, that's another 4 million. That's $16 million out there that we could have a piece of that and not have to be a tax for nobody, let it be something that's gonna benefit the county. That's just my thoughts. We need to get everybody on board as a governing body and see if we could not address this issue and maybe get some money that could come to our table quick.
I agree. Well, Mike, I think what your suggestion's good, but we're at a point, we don't have time to meet with the mayors of municipalities, and because this is something that with 4 weeks to advertise, they're going into session tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, that's only gonna leave us about, 2 weeks? About 2 weeks of a leeway to play with, and since you gotta take a resolution to a work session, then to a meeting, the time frame's just not there.
Well, if we could get on board right now and make something happen, we might still make it work. And, seemed to me that's what they'd rather do. After talking to the legislative group, they'd like to see that county go along and see if we couldn't all get on the same page and make it work, But, I think they're willing to try to work with us, but they're kind of in a position where they want to see more input from the people also.
They want to see everybody agree, and everybody's not gonna agree. And we're to the point where if we don't do something soon, with all the road damage we have and everything, we need funding now.
Right.
We can't let this session get done without at least attempting to try to do something now. And if we wait till next session, we're gonna be well into doing these repairs, and it's gonna drain the county's coffers, public works coffers, and I'm for putting together a resolution and send it to them now. Right.
Mr. Chairman, did you have any luck with the redistribution of the inland TVA tax dollars you were talking about, being based on property and population that you were proposing?
That's something that's going to have to be done. It ain't gonna be done. It's going to have to be done at the state level.
But how
And,
receptive were the idea?
No, they're not, because you got, like Madison County, the way it's distributed out now, they're not gonna change it because it's based to help them. Mobile, Montgomery, those places, those areas with a higher population gets what they need. So,
The way the state breaks down their TVA, and we love check that comes to the state, 16 counties in the state of Alabama receive those funds. 80% of the money that we receive is based off of residential power sales, 10% off of commercial power sales, and 10% off of power assets. They no longer have any power assets in Jackson County, so you're left with 10% residential, 10% commercial and 80% residential. When you neighboring counties growing, at 5-10% rate, and we've been stagnant for the last 20 years, we don't have any residential growth. That's why our piece of the pie continues to get smaller. That coupled with the fact that, we don't want to have power assets that, they've decommissioned, wrote off Belfont, they've closed Woods Creek, so, we're down to just residential sales, and we're not seeing enough population growth and residential homes going up to keep us growing at the same rate as our neighboring counties.
I'm fine with moving the resolution over based upon what Mr. Venable, the breakdown he done. I'm good either way, or sending a 1 cent sales tax with it earmarked. I'm good either way, so it's.
Well, either way we do it, I think we need to limit what the money can be spent on, even if we do the 12.5% of what's already collected for a year and a half, and then 25% from that point forward. I still think we need to set a scope of things that money can be spent on. Maybe not this percent of this much or that percent of that much, but limit the flexibility of those funds.
And I need to think there needs to be a time frame on that, because we've all seen where the tobacco fund served its purpose where it goes to begin with, but now it's forever and it's not to be revisited. I think we need to revisit and see what the need is later on, or future commissions may need the opportunity to revisit.
Well, one thing in our next budget cycle, when we start doing our 2020 budget, we're gonna have to start looking hard at our senior services, senior RX, rural transportation, council on agents, I was trying to think of. So, I think we need to make that one of the things that those dollars can be spent on, so we can make those, a constant, for sure, that they've got funding for those if this goes through. One thing that we don't get any funding for, that is a big, drain on our county's general fund, is the county jail. And, we spend close to $2 million a year on the county jail. So if we spent some of those dollars on that would free up the county's general fund. And then, our roads, of course, public works department. So, those would be the three things that I would personally think that we would limit this new funds, if we are able to secure them, limit them to, our senior services, maintenance and operation of the jail, and, road and bridges.
Mr. Ford, couldn't we do two resolutions, do one, with, 0.5% of the current sales tax, and then the resolution we can spell out the 12.5%, 25, so we're taking the growth, and then we can go ahead and earmark those dollars, and then do a 1 cent sales tax we put on the ballot, the same way with earmark dollars, and then send both those resolutions to our delegation so that they can have a choice of which one they want to choose.
You may want to do it in one resolution with alternate, rather than two resolutions.
Okay.
Then you do one resolution that says, the request that you submit a local act for one of these two
Okay.
purposes.
Okay.
Then they can choose which one they want to do.
I mean, I know no one wants to be taxed more, but again, the roads have got to have something done. We have to build some kind of revenue for the county.
They definitely have to be earmarked. I mean, people want to know exactly where that money's gonna be spent, that'd be the only way,
And after this last recent events, flooding and everything, just about every pothole that's been fixed in the past year is ready to be repaired again. I mean, we've got to do something and do it fast.
Our road system's already in regression, and this has just speeded up the process and amplified the problems that we have. And if we don't get some surge of new dollars to attack it, then we're going to be in a really, really bad shape in the very near future.
We've come to a place that I think leadership at one time had put all the eggs in one basket, and depended on TVA, thought TVA would be here and those dollars would always be here, and we're finding now that that's not the case. And I'm hoping that more people in the county start looking into this to see where their county dollars are going, because I've received several emails concerning the roads conditions about their tax dollars, and I don't think that people really realize that their tax dollars are not going into their county like they think they are. And so we have got to do something to where this county is growing, just like the municipalities, just like the state is. We've got to have something to grow as our economy grows. And it's time, it's past time. We should have, I wish we'd had something. If we'd have had 1 cent 4 years ago, right now, we could have had $24 million just about, or at least $20 million in new roads. So it's amazing what 1 cent will do. But we're gonna have to have a growth mechanism.
If the infrastructure continues to deteriorate, businesses are gonna go, no one's gonna come, jobs are gonna go, so we gotta do something.
I want people to realize I'm not trying to take away from education, by no means, but, when you go out there and talk to all these people, majority of them, if you had 100 people surveyed, 95% of them would think that 2% tax becomes ours, which it does not. And I just feel like, buses can't travel, unless there's roads out there, it's feasible to do it. And, I just see the need for, they want to kind of contemplate and work with us, was my point of view.
How do y'all want to proceed with, on the next?
Well, we need to look at the
meeting?
resolution in the next meeting, and we either vote to pass the resolution to ask them to take action, or we don't get anything done this year. That's.
Okay. We'll we'll get a resolution ready for the either or one resolution with both, thanks to Mr. Border, and let him get it ready for our next meeting, which will be at Payroll Valley School, next Monday at 6 o'clock. So that's where it'll be there, so we'll get that voted on Monday. Anything else? Anybody else want to say anything about our pending resolution? All right, we'll move on to HRRR Safety Project on County Road 77. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I love the new space, so I'll do my best. I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to stand, so I'm just going to come close so you can hear me and ask any questions you may have. This HRRR is High Risk Rural Road Program, and it's not an annual program. It is dependent upon statewide fatality rates. So it's those fatality rates trigger federal dollars to go to our state. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is a call for grants that we received back in the summer. We analyzed data from a care system, and we applied for a grant for our largest crash data road that fits the criteria of this program. And we learned recently that we were awarded this. So what I'm going to tell you about is the project, how we went through the process of selecting it, how we were awarded it, and if you choose to move forward, it will require a 10% match and a resolution next week. So I'll start back up this one. The program, like I said, is based on fatality rates. So they want to see crash data that shows fatality rates on a certain section of roadway. It's not guaranteed, and it's not an every year thing. It's when those rates get to a certain number, it triggers this program and federal dollars to come. Any money that's not used by the state is returned, and there was about $4 million there for this year that was awarded to Alabama. So if you divide that by 67 counties, then you're under $100,000. These are eligibility things that they look for in these projects, and super elevation corrections, high friction surfaces, so you can resurface with a material that increases the friction, clear intersection improvements, minor leveling, shoulder widening, and also your traffic control devices, sign, pavement markers, striping, unshielded bridging. They will allow bridge rail and end treatments on any unprotected bridges. They are evaluated by committee, so counties like us, they compile information, look at the data, submit projects, and propose countermeasures in that. And so, this committee evaluates what we've submitted and the overall need, the effectiveness of what we are proposing to fix this. And then, your presentation of what you submitted to them and what you get across to them. So maintenance-related projects are usually a no-go. For example, if we compile this county roads and we say we want to stripe all these county roads, but that's not gonna work. So, they look for a targeted area where there's a problem. They look for data-driven issues, and they look for countermeasures that will deliver the results to hopefully reduce whatever's going on in that particular area. So, large projects like that last bullet had, right-of-way acquisition, utility relocations, any long, drawn-out fixes, that's not gonna get it either. So, as I mentioned, 90-10 split, they usually don't approve anything over that 100,000, because you saw how much money that the state got off that. And then you have the option of doing it yourself, hiring a contractor, using on-call bids. On-call bids is basically our annual bids like that we do every year, in-house. So, you still have to comply with federal aid standards because it's federal dollars we're talking about. And then, once the state picks us, we get your approval to do it, then the feds still have to say, okay, that, we're okay with that, and then go. So, that's the approval process. So when we made our selection to submit our application, I mentioned it's data driven. Whenever there's a crash on a roadway, then an accident report's done. That's stored in a database, and we can recall that information and analyze nodes of the roadways to look at where accidents occurred. So when we took Jackson County and looked at the highest crash locations in those nodes, the data you see is what we came up with. County Road 21, 42, 67, and 77. So, as you can see, 77 is almost double on crashes. There was a fatality, and data years was 16 to 18, and then 5 with severe injuries. So, also in the table you're looking at are primary causes. That's also something that enters into our evaluation, as well as previous projects. So, as you see there, County Road 77, it was a previous HRRR project where we updated the striping and were able to actually install a guardrail in the severe curve. This is 79 to the county line, but it's head up the mountain to Grant. Y'all familiar with that? 79 south, and then up the mountain towards Swearingen. Dobbins Gap, I want to say, maybe what it's called. So, by comparison, the other projects there, 67, that was something that was chosen in years past, and that was when the guardrail was added to the causeway. 77 stuck out when we looked at our data, not just from these numbers you see, but it was all concentrated to the severe curve, and it was all eastbound, so it was all headed down the mountain. It was all speed related, and it was all negotiating a curve. So that's a pretty good indicator to us, hey, your problem is speed, and your problem more particularly is speeding this curve. So that's what led us to target that project being the leader on where those crashes were occurring. So what we proposed was with a $100,000 maximum, that's not enough money to resurface the whole mountainside with a high friction wearing surface, but it is enough money to update the striping to improve visibility and delineate the sides and the center of the road. It is enough money to do pavement markers and traffic control markings, and in advance of the curve, install rumble strips. And then also something new for Alabama and innovative, I guess you could say, are the optical speed bars and the LED embedded lights. So probably an example of the LED embedded lights that most people are familiar with. If you're westbound 72 toward Huntsville, that sign there at Doug Hill, everybody seems to have noticed that. So I think I have a picture or two on the next slide of that. So everybody's also probably familiar with rumble strips approaching a four-way stop, that series of 5 strips that you would hit. That would be out, if you imagine that, in advance of this curve, but also in the curve are optical speed bars. Purpose of optical speed bars is to provide them an illusion of going faster than you really are. So as you get into the increased curvature of the roadway, the bars actually lessen in spacing, so they're closer together. So it appears that you're going faster than you really are when you see these bars. So that's an illustration of how they're placed along the center and edge line. And then also in advance of that curve, it would be a curve line sign, not an intersection sign, but you get the idea there on the LED you've been applied. The cost of the project. So we're about close to 50,000, 46 total, and then federal dollars would be right at 42. We would have less than a $5,000 match to do what we're proposing. This is the letter from the local transportation bureau notifying us that we have been awarded the project if we choose to pursue it. That was kind of fast on,
Can we only pursue one project?
That's-
It's
yeah, that was my
$100,000
question.
and we're under the 100, we can only pursue
one
one
project.
Yeah, I mean, it's your suggestion, I guess, be this.
I mean, yeah, I think this would help our, our situation, given the data that we have, the crashes in the curve. I think it would bring driver awareness to that curve and hopefully slow them down. We have been informed that next year, there may be 200,000 available, so, we'll be looking at projects. And, if you think about some of those things we talked about in your districts and areas that you're aware of, please share that with us so we can analyze in the data. It should show, when we pull our data sets, the crashes should show, but local knowledge is always beneficial.
Yeah, everybody good, we'll put that on resolution for to vote on next week.
Yes, sir.
Sounds great. We'll put it on the meeting for next Monday also. You got anything else, Mr. Campbell?
I can go into updates now.
Yeah.
I have a few photos I'd like to share with you all
Okay.
about some of the slides, just of the presentation. Alabama EMA was with us last week, and we did an assessment, or they did an assessment, wanted to visit at least one site, but we had a chance to sit down with them, and I'd like to thank Paul and Felix for coordinating that and all they've done to work with us and help us during this. But we were able to show them the magnitude of some of the slides, and some of this is aerial footage from a drone, so the elevations may not appear as they would from ground level, but we'll get to see them all, and we can kind of get a good idea of the magnitude, I think, of a lot of these. So this is County Road 189. This section of roadway was moving and has moved in years past, but this storm really ignited it with all the water. So what's going on here, you can see the area, the scarp there and where it's translocated. And you can also see where we're trying to maintain one lane of traffic. County Road 189 is one of the only two mountain roads that there's only one way up and one way down. It's just in Putnam Mountain. And so we are trying to do everything we could before this to maintain one lane of traffic, and it'll have to be repaired in the same manner. So the ditch has been piped, and we've made all the shoulder we could against the side of the mountain in hopes of maintaining traffic. What's going on in this picture now, the crews actually had to repair a drainage structure, remove it and install another one on a hill where the slide had broken the structure. But it's 350 foot long, about 50 to 50 foot wide as far as what's moving. And then there's about a 20 to 25 foot elevation difference from the roadway to the next bench down on the profile. Another shot there overhead, you can see the power line is directly under the excavation area that we'll need. And you can see on the track cover in the foreground that the scarp is all the way up to there, and even below here. Another shot, just looking at the different angle that you couldn't see from the other one. elevation difference of, where it's broken up and scarped and slid. County Road 93 near Bryant. This is a linear wise, this is a very long slide. There's probably a quarter mile of earth disturbed. Some of these areas, it almost looks like a flow. It has characteristics really more like a flow in a slide, like it basically the water layer just allowed the cohesion to release and the whole area is slid. So this is the upper part of the slide. You can see where the roadway's cracked and or slid on the upper part, and there's a separation where you see the folks in the very top of the screen. There's a separation there, and there's more movement just down below the aerial photo of that upper slide, and then about where the truck was in that, there's another slide. That's the top. And then the other section you saw earlier was the middle, and then there's a lower section that's coming up. This is the lower section, and the hairpin curve, it's hard to see. But right where the tree line hits the road on the downhill side, you can see a scarp that's forming. It looks like it follows a driveway, and when you're on the road, that's what it looks like. You can see that same driveway. Road is to the left on that picture.
And that house and that curb,
There's a residence back in there. County Road 38, so you'll notice this is in a switchback. There's a lower road and an upper road, and what's in the center of the screen here is the upper road. You can't see all the scarp in this picture. It's north in the frame here, and then you can see where it's in the road, and it leaves the frame here too. It's larger. Another shot uphill looking down, and you'll notice the lower section of road there in this photo, and then there's just a cluster of where the largest area slid. Cross drainage is just uphill from this location. Now we're on the lower road, and this is not as severe in magnitude, but it's a lot longer to win. There's a crack that you can't see in the upper part of this picture, and then a middle crack, and then a crack below where I'm standing there on the roadway. That's the upper portion where movement started, and then center part. 17, County Road 17 near Larkinsville. It's you can see where we previously had leveled in years past, and it's been leveled over in years past. But you can see the size and magnitude of this one. This is about 350 feet again, and probably about the same dimension wise, except it's a lot deeper. When I say deeper, it's a lot deeper to where we think the problem lies. It's about 30 to 35 feet down. There's a spring that runs out of the mountain, and then just downhill that you can't see, there's a cross drain and a ditch, a small channel carrying water off the mountain below us. So that lower portion, back up one if you don't mind. The lower portion is translocated this way, and then the upper scarp is trying to slide down. And so this is a large slide. Now, this is different than the other slides in the fact that it's on a major collector. This road is a federal aid route for us, or a major collector. So it's not in the FEMA picture. It's in the ER picture. So emergency relief funds. That's a federal highway program that takes the place of FEMA or substitutes for FEMA. And we followed kind of the same process, and I'll talk a little more about it later, as far as getting our estimates and following procedures on doing the work and being reimbursed. The payment is a little different. So this is the 80/20, just like a federal aid project, versus the FEMA reimbursements, which the FEMA portion is 75%, but FEMA's portion also includes a 12.5% from the state. So we ended up with about an 87.5% reimbursement on FEMA projects versus an 80/20 on ER. So what are slides anyway? I'm going to tell you what my knowledge of it and kind of scratch the surface on slides, and I'm not a geologist or a geotechnical engineer at all, disclaim that up front, but we have, you know, in the dealing with roadways, you're gonna deal with slides too, so, if you picture this as a mountainside, let's say, and you see basically what we've seen in the pictures, you know, scarp forms, this material breaks loose and it slides, and that green is an indicator of the failure plane. And you see how that material is translocated to the toe. It's, you know, conservation of mass principles. If it leads uphill, it's going to be somewhere downhill. So these things happen different ways in different parts of the country, but we're Pottsville formation. So you know, the Appalachians is part of the Pennsylvania Pottsville formation, and it's created by an upheaval. That upheaval is typically has caprock on top, and there's different strata, different rocks within that mountainside. And that could be sandstone, it could be limestone, it could be shale, whatever, in different layers, if you kind of picture that along that slope. So, over the 400 million years that this is sedimentary rock has been weathering and water's been running across it, colluvial material piles up on the side of the mountain and erodes and is displaced. And that just so happens to be where we drive our bulldozer and build our road, right? So we do that, and we coast the road into the side of this mountain into that colluvial material most often. And sometimes Mother Nature has something to say about where we put our things. And water comes off the side of the mountain like it has for 300 million years, but maybe it don't have a way to get around that road, or it finds a seam in this shale or in the sandstone, and it follows that seam out. And that could be 15 feet under our road, it could be right under our road, just depending, but it's typically always ignited by water. So there is a layer in there, a strata in there, that whatever soil that road is on is not bonding to, or it may be impenetrable to water, and that water is following that seam, and it's in times where we're inundated with water, it releases that cohesion where the dirt has bonded to that, and we get what we've got all over the county right now. This is kind of a standard for, you know, just a typical shallow slide. And the next slide is a deep circular. So these are less common, but they kind of exhibit what's portrayed there. You get almost a wedge action in the back, and then a serious upheaval downhill, and they're typically a lot deeper and harder to pinpoint, diagnose, and see, honestly. So that's really all about the slide stuff. I'm going to go into some washouts and just kind of give you hopefully a cross section and an idea of what's everywhere else in the county and things that we find. Give you an update kind of on where we're at and where we go from here. But before I get into that, are there any slide questions or?
Have you got into putting together a process to fix these? I know where the cohesion takes place, you're either going to have to dig through it, dig to it, and scarify it, or pin it some way too. Have we got far enough into these to even start coming up with a plan to fix them?
No, sir. You're exactly right. That is typically the repair method: is excavate those out, put back a soil that's not only free draining, but something that compacts easily, quickly, and then rebuild the field. Excavating into that, you know, if you encounter a solid subsurface, you can beach into those things and create something besides, you know, a failure plane, make it more difficult for it to fail in the future. But at this point, no, we haven't gotten into that. That's a good question. Are there any others? So, just to back up a little bit and just kind of recap a little on the way we're approaching this. With so much damage countywide and knowing what we know from previous floods, we wanted to have a good assessment of the county and the damage and what was out there. Obviously, we caught the slides, but there are enormous amount of drainage structures, 180 something bridges to look under, and a ton of road miles, that we have to at least lay eyes on and feel like we've given our diligence on identifying what problems may exist. So we should complete those assessments this week, hopefully. And so I just grabbed a few that was on the table, and I'll show you a picture of the table too in a minute. And I just wanted you to kind of get an idea of things like we're finding and things like we fixed in 15. So this is just a kind of a typical washout around the bridge, just around the bridge abutment. And, you know, this will have to be repaired. Same type thing here. You can see scour damage and the wings falling off, broken away from the bridge, that will need repair. Scoured pipe, you know, high flows, it was overwhelmed, and so scoured our coastal pavement. This is scoured and just completely undermined the whole pipe and dropped, looks like it's dropped a section. That one's about to. Trees, tons of trees, debris. We had two major areas, 618 I believe it was, and 67, where a lot of crews responded over the weekend, and trees were cut, moved out of the road and cleared the road, and all that stuff has to be picked up. And FEMA's a little picky on how you handle debris for reimbursement amounts, and how they reimburse in their process is going to dictate how we move forward, and I'll kind of explain that and maybe kind of answer that other question. This is another example of debris. You know, I'm showing you some examples here, but you can multiply that times 25 and move it all around the county to kind of understand the magnitude. So these crews that are assessing are taking pictures, they're noting the location and an area that it's close to, and then that's all compiled. So these, what you're seeing there, is where they've organized their pictures by geographic location and type of work. So some of those stacks have 30 pictures in it, and that's 30 little jobs that have to be done, let's say. So that's going to, most of those are debris removal or flood and washout repairs, like we just looked at on pictures. And so they'll utilize that. We're going to utilize it for estimating purposes, as far as knowing where we're at. They're going to use it to prioritize their work on what's emergency in nature and what's debris and what's flood and washout. But we're also going to use that picture to track our costs. What I mean by that is, when the last time the material sheet's turned in and that job's complete, then that picture will accompany that. Then once the time material sheets are entered, there'll be a report generated to show the cost that were involved in doing that work. That'll go to a binder. There'll be two binders created as this goes, and then we'll get a kickoff meeting from FEMA, and we'll have probably a final meeting and probably some of their expert visitors that come and look at our repair techniques that we've identified and want to move forward with. But at any given time, by doing this way, we feel like we can sit down at the table with them, and if there's any discussion about reimbursement amounts we've submitted, we can sit down and look at the picture and look at the site and walk through the steps on what we had to do to correct it and where the debris went and things such as that. So step one is that assessment that we talked about. There's kind of several step ones, I guess. The AEMA visit was crucial and that's important. They need to come up and see what we're up against and see the magnitude. Not only does it let them know what we're dealing with, but it helps them with their statewide assessment on meeting the thresholds for this to be a declaration, FEMA declaration. So that visit was good. We'll be working on, for them to move forward with that declaration, there's a $7 million statewide threshold, I believe, that they have to meet. So our portion of damages need to be in that estimate for Alabama. Now, for them to move forward with our estimate, we have to compile that and get our hands around what dollars we're talking about. So that assessment, the assessment part of that, once that's complete, then we can move on that. Also involved with the large project. So
Will we meet the threshold?
Sir,
Do you think we'll meet the threshold?
Statewide, I feel confident that there'll be a declared event. The ER estimate will work the same way, so, this is straight federal aid we're dealing with, but they still require an estimate and some approximation on, what it's gonna take to make those repairs. And then third-party estimates, so, Mr. Venable, as you mentioned, some of those techniques that don't require excavation, my preference is to get some of those geohazard mitigation experts in, let them look at what we're dealing with, let them submit a proposal, and then we have some more information on options on what we're doing. And they typically involve soil nails, rock bolts, things of that nature. Soil nail launcher even is probably the most cost-effective way they can do it. But there are other options besides purely excavating. Okay, so that's a lot of estimates, and a lot of that hinges on having our assessments complete, which we're working on. So next step is really going to be compiling those estimates and getting those turned in so they can put those towards the statewide estimate. Debris and safety work. So FEMA pays different ways for different type of work. So there is emergency work that's emergency nature and required for life and safety and traveling public, things that arise initially. Then there debris and emergency work. That's in the first category, and then there's permanent work, and then small projects and large projects. So they want to accelerate the debris work. So that'll be where we concentrate first. If the debris work is complete within the first 30 days, then there's an 85% reimbursement amount. If it goes into the 60-day period, that drops to 80, so forth and so on. Past 180 days, 0. So our focus will be safety of the traveling public, number one. But once those things are satisfied, we're going to focus on debris and getting this debris cleaned up and land within that first 30 days, hopefully. Now, they are particular about the debris. So that's where the pictures come in. But also we either have to pile the debris in a staging area, and we have to measure the debris, and we have to show them pictures of the measured debris, and we have to show where the debris went. So if it's reduced and we burn it, and they want to see a burn permit. They want to see all the measurements on how we arrived at the quantities. If it's taken somewhere, obviously we have to have tickets on where it was weighed and things of that nature. So we think we have a good handle on the debris, and we had success in the last go around on reimbursements with that. But that'll be first in nature on orders of work. And then obviously we hadn't heard anything about a FEMA declaration. So sometime after the estimates we submit and everybody else in the state gets their estimates turned in, and then the Alabama EMA gets that turned into FEMA, then hopefully we hear something about a declaration. Once we hear something about a declaration, then I think we would all feel more comfortable about permanent work, particularly large project work. So once we know for sure we're going to have FEMA in the picture, we're looking at reimbursements for these things, then I think we would be ready to break ground on some type of permanent work or large project work. Now, permanent work can also be like those washouts we talked about. That'll still be going on, after the debris and possibly with the debris. But the large project work will definitely be sometime after a FEMA declaration. I think that's my last slide.
Yeah, that's it.
So, any questions about?
How long do you expect it to take before we get started repairing some of these work projects? Because I know everybody's getting questions about, well, why ain't we fixing it yet?
Yeah, it's gonna be a long time. I mean, honestly, is what I think. There is an immense amount of work just in all the small washouts and floods. It may be that if we feel comfortable about a large project repair, FEMA's in the picture, that we can obligate a 4 or 5 man crew to that and still continue with this other after the debris, I would say. So I think we're most likely months away from even starting a large project.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Any more questions? We'll continue on with, reports from staff. Mr. Manning, you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Porter?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Mr. Rich?
No.
Mr. Bennett?
No, sir, I don't have anything.
Ms. Gilbert?
Just want to thank Jonathan and the guys for working as hard as they can. I know they don't even, looking at it as such a major deal, they don't know where to begin. It seems like, it just seems like it's overwhelming. Just keep your heads up and keep going. I appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Sisk?
Only question I've got coming into the valley next week, does anybody have a key? I have no key.
Mr. Duke said he would get a keyboard.
I have no idea if there's any chairs, anything over there.
I'll get with Mr. Dix, make sure he's got all that took care of.
Been in to see anything, because it was after vandalized, my understanding, it never was cleaned up, you know, so. People have been calling, wanting to know what the situation's gonna be, I said, I have no idea, so.
Why are we meeting on that? Just something
It's for the,
historical.
for the board.
Okay.
We just have a community meeting and then,
I'm gonna have electricity.
yeah.
Okay.
Other thing I'll follow up, just like, Linda said, I know it's a hard task out there on the employees and Jonathan, got a lot of restless nights ahead of them, looks like, trying to get all this together, but appreciate all the effort's been made. And, I feel like we're very grateful, as I said before, at least we're not like Phoenix City, as, Mr. Porter mentioned in the prayer, you know, we're blessed, we just got some landslides. But keep those folks in the prayers.
All right, I just got one thing, about our room, our new meeting room. I appreciate Ross, he's worked hard about getting all electronics. He kinda done the layout on the room, and so he's been instrumental in getting this done. Anna and Kathy has helped get a lot of this stuff ordered and kept it on track, kept it going. Wayne and Daryl have done a lot of the work with inmates, so I appreciate them. Did I forget anything?
The commission staff as a whole have stepped up and helped.
They have, like all of our commission offices really stepped up and done a tremendous job. I think I got it right.
The trustees.
Yeah, the trustees, I don't remember their names, so trustees done a good job. But they did the painting, done a lot, took painting the doors down, done a lot of the stuff, the manual labor stuff, so appreciate those guys. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed,